on to my friends Creepypasta X Beast Listener up in here. So don't worry, we're actually in chapter 8, not in chapter 7. We're just gonna go through a quick recap. So let's get straight into it. So first, if you guys don't remember, we were had an encounter with the rake. We ended up getting chased like as fast as we could, and making left, right, and turns. We discovered we're really, we're able to get through like a really really wavy, like really small ways without getting stuck, because we're a big creature. We just kind of pummel them down as we run, and poor Sally just on the back of us, like holding on for dear life, try not to get herself thrown off from her seating. And now Sally, you guys know, who Sally is. We should know, but if you don't, I'm not telling you, you'll find out later. Actually, you know what, I will, because I stuck in mind in my decision. Anyway, so Sally is not Sally face. Sally is just a little girl, has blood that goes down her face, but she's a ghost. A kind of ghost. It's like a I don't know, some type of phantom or something like that. And she is the daughter of Slenderman. Not like the blood, but no matter what, she's the daughter of Slenderman. So, make sense? There you go. And she knows the forest like the back of her hand. So she just starts yelling pom-pom, like for certain directions to get away from the rake. And we just start following those orders. And then the rake, we somehow lost the rake, but started encountering with these two individuals that we saw, which I'm guessing were Masky and Hoodie, because those are the close that with what it described, etc. And then all of a sudden, freaking Rake comes behind us, going crazy. Rake basically like scratched her leg, or some talons or something like that. We we're just like crazy. We're going crazy. It hurts, kind of like a horse. We go everywhere, and the claws basically that scratched against the hoof or whatever because we were on a steep hill, it caused us to start turning into a ball and kind of roll down. And whenever we turn into a ball, we could become very, very scary, very, very fast. And that's ourselves. It's literally because of the movement, how fast we're going, especially since it's downhill towards those figures. And we end up kind of like losing it at the same time. We're like colliding with all these trees, creating momentum. And when the rake suddenly pops up, we end up hitting the rake, sending him flying back far away, probably in pain. And then we end up slowly getting unrolled out. But we actually end up throwing Sally off while we do all that. And luckily, Sally got caught by those two silhouetted figures, which again I mentioned, or might be Masky and Hoodie. I'm 100% sure one is Masky, the other one I'm 90% sure it's Hoodie. And after we get uncircled or whatever, we end up looking for Sally. Like, what the fuck is going on with Sally? We see these two silhouetted figures. They are just like, what the hell is this? And then they end up pulling out a gun on us as soon as we get closer. We emit like a scary growl of irritation because we were protecting this girl. And what the hell, bros? Pretty much. And last thing we see or hear is a gunshot. So yeah, that's basically it. Hey guys, so I just wanted to let you in on some warnings, because it's about to get a bit crazy up in here. So first thing I'd like to mention is that there will be a lot of mentions of violence, like hella violence, weapons, and very graphic shit. Like, there's gonna be some graphic stuff going on. This is a creepypasta after all, so it's like the most we expect of it, am I right? And I guess I should mention as well, there be mentions of a missing person. Us. And if you guys are sensitive to that, and about people missing, and those are you guys' warnings. Take it as you will, and you have been warned. And now we is in currently chapter 8. The loud sound of the gun echoed off the trees. I, however, was unharmed. The bullet had whizzed past my body. I stiffly turned to follow the bullet's path. The rake's loud squeal was next to echo. The creature's body was mangled and covered in its own blood. Some of its ribs protruded through its flesh, and its limbs were oddly twisted around about its body. The bullet had caused the rake to flail about the ground in pain, kicking up dust and debris before snarling furiously at the two men and awkwardly scampering back to the cover of the bushes, vanishing. I returned my attention to the two, fully expecting a bullet to be fired at me this time. But to my surprise, he had holstered his weapon while the other released Sally from his grip. Sally came running up to me and throwing her arms around my body as much as she could, snuggling into my chest. Though I was still tense with the strangers around, Sally was hopping up and down with a grin on her face. She then twirled to the two behind her. "Masky, Hoodie, this is Pom Pom. Say hello." "Oh, you poor souls," I scoffed. "At least I'm not the only one who's named after my appearance." Perhaps Sally nicknamed them herself. The two had approached earlier, but stayed a good distance. They seemed too nervous of the situation. Then one, who I can only assume is Hoodie, stepped forward. His black balaclava, what the fuck? I don't know what that is, and stitched frown hid his true emotion, but his slow, short steps showed reluctance. He made his way behind Sally, placing both hands on her shoulders to stop her bouncing. Sally began to pat me, as though to encourage her friend to do the same. Slowly, he raised his gloved hand to my face and dragged a finger down the smooth surface of my mask. He seemed more interested in my mask than the rest of me, continuing to elogue it before grabbing a hold of it entirely and relieving it from my face. As I've said before, I have yet to see for myself my appearance, though whatever was revealed caused this guy to catch his breath. He expected me for a moment, running his finger gently around my eyes and mouth. Its face is a quiet owl. It's quiet owl-like. I've never encountered a creature like this. He removed a camcorder from the pouch of his hood, circling me with great interest. Masky, who had taken a call while Sally talked to Hoodie and I, closed his old-fashioned device and returned it to his jacket while calling over his companions. "Sally, it's time for us to go home. Slender has been worried about you." Sally pouted and grabbed a hold of some of my hair. "Can we keep—" "No." Masky folded his arms. We don't even know what it is." Sally looked as though she wanted to argue, beg, or cry, but she remained silent as she turned to me and gave me another hug. "Bye, Pom Pom." She said her farewell and was scooped up by Hoodie, who returned my mask to my face and recorder to his pocket. The three of them began trekking into the bush while she waved over his shoulder. Here I stand, alone once more. I think it's beginning to rain. Oh my goodness, bro. Ooh. Chapter 9. Over the past month, I've yet to see the three of them, or that Rake character again. After Sally and her companions left, I've been rather busy keeping a low profile. The hunter guy is roaming the woodlands almost every evening. On my return from the lake, I spotted him and another few armed guys giving chase through the foliage to a young man in a blue mask and black hoodie. The young man was lugging a large and stuffed burlap sack and appeared to have a few good bullet holes in his shoulder and thigh. He seemed to be worn out, gasping with every stumbling step he took and losing blood quickly. An aura of desperation, maneri whatever, from his body. Though I'm naive of the situation, this was too much. Watching the hunter track the guy from the shadows of the underneath bush, thinking perhaps he was a burglar who had stolen something from them. But they were clearly firing rounds after rifle rounds with clear intent of maiming or killing him. It reminded me of the situation Sally had been in, cornered and crying. That hunter is no doubt the bad guy here, and I was not going to let that man put someone in such a situation again. Bursting out of the bush close enough to the men that if they had reached out, they could have touched me. I had caught the four men by surprise, simply cutting in between the chasers and chased and disappearing back into the shadows. The suddenness of my arrival and disappearance caused the pursuing group to halt in the chase, once again falling backward from shock. They scanned around for a moment, then whipped their heads to the direction of the guy in the mask that had once been. He managed to hide himself with the few seconds offered to him. The trail of blood and footprints ended as though he had simply vanished into fog. I stared down at them from the branches, watching the hunter guy throw his gun in frustration, cursing to the other two men with him. Apparently, this was not the first time he had given chase. He grows ever angry with each failed capture. While I watched the fiasco unfold from the safety of the trees, I'm startled by a hand landing on my shoulder. All my hair stood on end, and an airy sound left my mouth. Looking over, I come mask to mask with the guy that they were after. He frankly could put his hands out in front of him, then a finger to his mouth, in an attempt to settle me. I stared at him. His black clothing was completely torn to shreds and covered in blood. His wounds had been newly mended by medical wrap. The sack he had been carrying rested on a branch within his reach. In the sockets from his mask dripped a black substance, while one sporting a crack. He was full focused on the group retreating underneath us, leaning over while standing perfectly balanced on his clawed hands and bare feet. He was still up to the moment we could no longer see nor hear the group, throwing the sack over his shoulder and leaping off the branch and landing on his haunches. He winced from the landing, irritating his wounds, but recollected himself before looking up at me. When I followed suit, I shifted my weight to When I went to follow suit and shifted my weight to the branch, it shook and emitted a quick snap. I froze, my claws digging into the bark, but not giving me any real traction. I crawled up the tree without thinking of the situation. Now that I had been shook out of my concentration to the ground began to swirl. My stomach did somersaults. The guy was staring at me questioningly. I had practically frozen to the spot. Probably looked like a round cat stuck in a tree. He scratched the back of his head and looked around the area. He placed the sack from his shoulder onto the ground and reached in and pulled out a pink object. It was larger than his hand and flopped with his movement. It looked repulsive but smelled divine. He crouched down and began patting the ground with his free hand. "Come here." His voice was deep and scratchy, but he sounded sweet, calm, and quiet. He was like he was talking to a child. I looked at my feet and down up to the branch to the trunk. Took one step, the branch cracked. 2 steps, a quick snap. Step 3, my claws touched the trunk and I climbed down slowly, my eyes not leaving the ground until I was all 4 feet were on the dirt. I looked back at his crouched form. He held out the meaty object before himself, wiggling it slowly. He made a clicking sound with his mouth, much to my amusement. I started forward. If he was offering up free food, I'm fine with humoring him. I took a sniff of the object in his hand. It smelled slightly of pork, maybe some antibiotics, but that's all I got from it. That's all I got from it. Oh, excuse me. I debated whether to reject the offer, but my stomach growled. The man chuckled. Moving the object closer, I noticed him watching intently as I took a hold of the flabby substance, making sure I don't take his finger along with the food. Tasting the meat on my tongue, I could tell it was not pork, but I swallowed too fast for my brain to properly analyze what it may have been. It had a rich aftertaste and a tough texture, heavy enough to fill the hole in my stomach. The man gave my head a pat, lifting his mask off his gray face to give me a toothy smile. His eyeless sockets seemed to sparkle with interest. "Ah, you like people too." "I sure do, buddy." Chapter 10. I followed him home. I could only blame my curiosity of this man. He was short, had dark, ashy skin, pointed teeth, and no eyes. As someone who lives to learn, I went against my better judgment and followed a stranger to his house in the woods. I'm not sure if he noticed my presence or he was too focused on returning to the safety of the building before passing out from blood loss. but he made no action to give away he was aware of my presence, or perhaps he didn't mind the extra company. I stayed a few good yards away while following his footprints to an old moss-covered building. It was a decent size, run down, possibly intended for a small family. The roof looked as though it would give away from the weight of a tiny bird. I watched him enter the shambled building. The screen door slamming behind his figure as he disappeared into the house. I disregarded my stealthiness when I could no longer see him, rolling up to the large cracked window on the back of the building. It was difficult looking past the water stain on the glass, but I could tell the interior was well taken care of in comparison to the exterior. The entrance opened to a nicely furnished living room with a connected kitchen. The masked guy disappeared with his baggage down a small hallway, most likely where his room and bathroom are hidden. He returned shortly without the sack, carrying a silver tray with white wrap, clean gloves, and thread. I'm not sure what I was going to get out of stalking this guy. Maybe I'm just feeling lonely after Sally left. I should leave him alone. A new voice kept me in place. I crept along the siding, staying low while peeking around the corner of the entrance. There stood two individuals. One I recognized as a character from an old video game, though his eyes were missing, replaced with a bright red bead of red in the dark socket. His gold hair and green clothes were damp and dripping. He looked irritated with his companion, Jeff the Killer. Kind of hard to not know who he is when his burnt face is plastered all over the internet. Not as good looking as many of the illustrations may imply, though. His skin was indeed porcelain white, but only on splotches of his exposed skin. His black hair fell over his shoulder on his right, while his left side of his scalp had been shaved. His iconic smile and big eyes made his face look bigger. Reminds me of the Walmart stickers. Oh goodness, girl, you really gotta do them like that. The short guy in green knocked on the screen door, shouting for the homeowner while cradling his abdomen. "Jack, I know you're in there. Open the door." It was silent. The short guy kicked the door in frustration. "Jack, come on. I need stitches. Jeff stabbed me again." Jeff clicked his tongue, reaching for the door and pushing it open. I could hear Jack growl when he entered uninvited, his companion following him in. I returned to the window. A newfound fear and interest emerged. Within the few months I've been in this form, I have encountered more supernatural beings than most do in a lifetime. I must commit my finding to memory. If I'm ever able to return to my normal life, I could write about my findings. I'm busy. Leave me be. Jack was just finishing stitching his own wound when the two approached the couch. He tied and cut the thread before standing. Jeff threw himself over the back of the torn Chesterfield and made himself comfortable in the cushions. "What the hell happened to you? Get caught? That's not like you." Jeff shuffled through the cushions, retrieving a remote and turning on the old TV, flipping through soap opera after soap opera. I didn't get caught per se. "Ben, come here." Jack led Ben down the hall with his tray in hand, vanishing out of the room and from my sight. Jeff scoffed, rolling his lidless eyes, and stopped the channel surfing on the news. "In on the story regarding the missing college student from whatever thing you go to. 3 students have been arrested on charges of murder." Well, damn. Damn. Chapter 11. Why and Ellen failed to return to the dorms Monday morning after a campout with classmates. When questioning the involved party, they refused to answer any questions involving YN's potential whereabouts. Used knives and books involving mythology were on their person when they were apprehended. they will be facing trial this coming Wednesday. As volunteers gather to scour the forestation in search of young YN, while the victim's family, the screen faded to black, the remote missing the TV by a foot as if it was flung across the coffee table. Boo, where's my story? Are the reporters not doing their job? Fucking bitches. Like, Jeff leaned over the back of the sofa and yelled down the hall, "Hey, Jack, your cult friends are in town. Looks like they're going to jail." A loud bang erupted from the back of the building, along with plenty of yelling. I stared at the black screen for a long moment. They killed me. Why? This is a shock. I can't think of a single instance where I could have earned such malice. I called them my friends, but I didn't know a whole lot about them. I think the camp was the first time I actually hung out with them outside of classes. I shook my head. Let's not jump to conclusions. Something could have happened that had no involvement on their part. This situation is already surreal, so it's best to get all the pieces before making a final judgment. When I looked back at Jeff's pale smiling face, when I looked back up, Jeff's pale smiling face was pressed against the glass. I choked on air as he peered intently at my mask. I held my breath while we stared each other down. I may be a beast with a bird, but in no situation do I want to be in contact with the infamous psycho Jeff the Killer. My fight instincts were starting to kick in. Jeff whipped his head back to the hallway. "Jack, there's a bear outside your house with no face." Oh no, I'm not getting deeply involved with this creep. I'm out. Goodbye. I backed up, fully intending to find the trail I used to get here and not look back. You finally decided to show yourself. Jack's deep, nonchalant voice stirred my mind before me. He had cut off my route, perhaps not intentionally. They found me. Now what? How should I act? Jack casually walked up to me, not showing any hesitation in his actions as he cupped my masked face in his hands, squishing and pulling at the little flesh on my cheekbones. I could do nothing but stand in place, too confused and uncertain on how to approach this predicament. The fuck is that thing? Did you replace Seed Eater or something? Jeff strode up behind Jack, hands lazily in his pockets, not seeming to care to take my large body as a threat. And that scares me. I removed myself from Jack's hold, shifting away as Jeff got closer. Jack shook his head, looking suddenly downcast. You can't replace Seed Eater. I met this one less than an hour ago. Saved my life, actually. From that old man who's been stalking the woods. Fed it, and it followed me home. Jeff snorted. His eyes mocked his companion for his misfortune with the run-in. So your pet's still missing? Maybe it got tired of you and left. Jeff awkwardly inspected me, getting far too close to my face. And by God, he smells unholy. The intense stench of bleach radiated from his skin like oversprayed Axe cologne. Rot and iron clung to his stained white hoodie, and his breath of uncleanness, and reeked of alcohol. All these intense smells at once. He may as well have smacked my face with a sandal. I reached back. There was no escaping it. My talon-like hands can't fit over my face and probably block the miasma. I think I may have offended him by my gagging. I could not take it. I shoved my face as close to Jack as I possibly could, almost knocking him off his feet. He was surprised but did nothing to remove me from his hoodie. It was better. He smelled of some blood, anesthetic, and iodoform, like a chiropractor. A doctor. Back off, Jeff. It doesn't like you. No surprise there, really. Jack cradled my head to himself triumphantly. A one-up on his companion, if you will. I do wonder what you are, though. Never seen you around in this forest. Jack hummed to himself in thought. Jeff leaned against the rickety siding. Siding. Maybe it's a traffic critter from Europe. Gotta ask Slender about that next time we meet. He doesn't like that shit, right? He pulled a knife from his hoodie, sticking the pointed rusted in between his teeth. Maybe mention the old guy. I think Bloody Painter was complaining about him last week. Something about breaking into my studio and spilling all this paint. Guys? Ben opened the stiff Open the stiff wobbly window, peeking out of it wearily. Proxies are on the phone. What's going on? Chapter 12. The two men who stood next to me shifted. They don't seem keen on communicating with these so-called proxies. Ben held the smartphone through the window, offering it to either of his companions to speak in his place, his damp fingers leaving droplets of water upon the glass screen. Jack ignored the small boy, continuing to cradle my masked face close to his body while simultaneously shifting on his bare feet. Jeff groaned dramatically, glaring at Jack while he snatched the phone from Ben, who smirked when he was relieved of the device. He unmuted the call, holding the phone out on speaker for all to hear. "What?" he growled, glaring at the screen as though the person on the other line wasn't fond of him. The voice on the other line ignored the act of aggression, either used to it or care little for the burnt, smiling man, keeping his voice leveled and unamused, like he too had been forced into the conversation. "Well, hello to you too, Woods. Are you with Ben?" I called a cell. I know that voice. It belongs to the man with the black ski mask who I had thought was going to shoot me back when Sally was around. The residents in this forest must be in a tight circle. Jeff glanced at Ben, who remained hanging out of the window, idly chilling against the windowsill, listening in on the conversation. "Ben's here. We're at EJ's place. Both were too much of a pussy to talk to you, so I stepped up." Both boys looked offended, but did not disrupt. The voice on the other line sighed. "Look, Slender wants to gather as many able bodies as he can right now. Meet us at Cherrywood Park." It was silent. The man on the other end waited for a reply, but the three boys said nothing. The aura of irritation gave away their true feelings on the situation. "Don't keep us waiting." The call disconnected. Jeff threw the device on the ground. "Fuck, they're always like this. Oh, please do this, because the face's ass stick said so. Christ, do shit yourself, bitch." Like, he's really mad. I mean, if they did that over and over, I would have been pretty mad too. So it's kind of relatable. This guy was quite the mouth. The other two seemed to agree with his statement though, shaking their heads with scowls on their face. Ben rubbed his temples, gritting his teeth together loudly. You know what happens if we don't go though. I don't want to end up like that other guy, all skinless and such. Jeff scoffed but understood. "Let's go get this over with then." Ben crawled out of the window and retrieved his surprisingly undamaged phone, wiping away some dirt and hiding it away somewhere on his body. Both he and Jeff began leaving for the trees. Jack frantically looked from them to his phone. Hold on now. I need to pack some medical supplies." Ben waved over his shoulder. "Go ahead then. We'll meet you there." Seriously, I'm blind, you guys. I've never been to the park and I don't know how to get there. Jeff smirked. "Sounds like a you problem. See you, Jackie." The two vanished into the thicket, leaving Jack and I alone. Should I leave too? I was about to go before Jack looks distraught, kicking the ground in frustration. Then he stops as though he had suddenly come up with something. He turns to me, a foolish grin spread across his lips, pulling out a fleshy object from his hoodie, waving it before my face. "Say, big guy, would you let me ride you?" Oh. Like, oh, for food? Oh, say less. For food? We really said, say less, fool. For food, anything happens. Chapter 13. I stood hesitant. It's one thing to let an 8-year-old on my back, who had no shoes and was clearly distraught, but this. Come on now. I'll give you this. He waved the pink piece around, dangling it before my face, and maybe even more if you're good. The offering is tempting. It smells like the snack he gave to me earlier. I cannot put my finger on what it is, though. I still don't know what it is from. That alone is making me hesitate. A grunt left Jack. He's getting impatient and doesn't have the time to wait on my acceptance. Fine then, suit yourself. He popped the object into his mouth, chewing it messily with his lips parted. some of the tar like tears dripping steadily from the unrefined action, falling into his hoodie or the ground. The rumble of my tummy chills for me. I have not noticed the saliva dripping from the bottom of my mask. I can't comprehend my own desire after watching such a display. Jack smirked, pulling another fleshy slab from his pocket, holding it before himself, coaxing me into taking the offer. It's annoying to know I can be swayed so easily despite knowing I should not. Am I turning more into an animal than I thought? I'm a little disappointed in my carelessness. I am both angry at myself and famished. Jack just barely had time to pull his finger out of the range of my jaws as I snapped around the fleshy meat. Damn, almost lost my hand there. He turned for the front of the house, gesturing to the ground. Stay or something. Don't move, alright? You already ate it, so a deal's a deal. I stood silently, thinking. I have once more been pulled into an odd circumstance. I don't even know this whole situation began, and I just keep sinking with every choice I make. I walked in a circle waiting for Jack to exit with his supplies, pulling out the blades of glass poking through the weeds on the ground. My scaly, clawed hands made it difficult to take a hold of such dainty objects, ending in my consciousness more frustrated than it was. This body. I need to know about it. If I learn, then I can adapt, or better yet, fix it. But my hand went to my mask, feeling the circular outline down to my beak protruding out in the bottom. Stupid, really. I thought I had accepted my situation. It's like if I were to see the changes to my face, if I were to look into the eyes of what this body had created, I will start to question if I'm the same person I once was. I don't want to disappear, but I must know. To know what is this mask hiding? Where did I get this mask in the first place? My thought was interrupted by Jack's return. A large black duffel bag rested on his right shoulder, his royal blue mask placed over his ashen face. All right now. I think that's everything. He approached me and placed a hand on my back, flank. I stiffened in response. How am I going to do this? Cedars wasn't as fast, so there's less to crawl over. There was less to crawl over. How dare you? Like, how dare you? All right, y'all. So that's all we're going to read because damn, crazy. So anyways, let me know what you guys think is going to happen next in the comments down below. What I think is going to happen next. We're going to have to meet some people we probably might either like or not like. Not too sure. And sorry y'all, I haven't been posting often. I've had some comments where, like, when is this coming? When is this coming? It'll be coming soon, darlings. I post like twice a week now because of the tight schedule I have. And if I don't post twice a week, I probably sometimes post one video a week or something because even I have a situation happening or stuff like that. So please understand. I am quite on a school schedule and on a marching band schedule, so it doesn't really help me. But anyways, but yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more videos, guys. But your girl's time to go. Bye and peace.